Throughout our ever-growing world, globalization has been at the forefront of it. As our technologies and way of distributing media improves, our world begins to shrink, and different countries and cultures begin to mix and interact. So does this apply to the world of film. This concept of media flow, hybridization, and cultural imperialism has set the basis for what we know as transnational adaptations, or remakes of films made in different cultural contexts. And today, I want to explore transnational adaptations, and how countries have remade famous Western IPs and how West adapts to these international IPs. How transnational remakes are created to explore and question cultural norms, and what it looks like when an adaptation is done wrong. As stated before, Hollywood has immense control on the international film market. This comes down to Hollywood's ability to push out thousands of films to international markets every year with substantial marketing behind them. Otherwise, they have a really good media flow, as they're able to push out media to different markets and influence other countries through their own media and pop culture. And there is no surprise that Western media has influenced the filmmaking principles of other nations, and other nations have gone out of their way to reinvent existing Western IPs to fit their cultural contexts. There is a plethora of beautiful examples to explore. Take the Turkish adaptation of the Exodus, Say Then, which replaces the typical Christian iconography of the film to match the predominantly Muslim Turkey. Or the Filipino Batman and James Bond movie named James Batman, where a Filipino secret operative named James Cap must work with Batman and Robin to help defeat an evil syndicate. US media has brought about a beautiful collection of cheap bootleg transnational adaptations, and despite the tacky and blatant ideological plagiarism they are themselves a demonstration of a fight against US media imperialism. However, there do exist instances where high-quality transnational remakes form and even succeed. Unforgiven is a 2013 Japanese Judeki Western film written and directed by Lee Sang-il. It is a remake of Clint Eastwood's 1992 Western of the same name. Unforgiven is a unique exploration of how transnational remakes employ the use of different cultures to create a setting and context familiar to their respective audience. Remakes are not inherently about changing the story or ideas. They are about changing the little things, elements like setting, actors, language, and the filmmaking process itself. However, Unforgiven is a unique outlook in how you can combine two cultural contexts as well. Sang-il's Unforgiven takes place during the Heiji period, an era in which the samurai had been abolished and former samurai had established themselves as Wild West-esque lawmen of Japan's countryside. Eastwood's Unforgiven takes place in 1880, in the midst of the Wild West. And as you can see, Sang-il's Unforgiven takes the context of the American West and translates it into what he sees as the Japanese equivalent of the outlaw Western frontier. Both films received immense critical acclaim in their respective nations, both withholding a 90+ Rotten Tomato score and both being immense financial successes. However, adaptations can also make significant change in elements more than making films appreciated from an artistic sense. What happens when the themes and ideas that may seem traditional and common in one culture are then put into a culture where such ideas are not seen as the norm? The 2005 Bollywood film Salam Namaste, which is set in Melbourne, Australia, tells the story of two Indian nationals, Nick and Ambi, who fall in love and decide to move in together, where a relationship begins to form. However, this relationship begins to squander when it's found out that Ambi has fallen pregnant. Salam Namaste is a transnational remake of the 1995 US film 9 Months, which follows a similar plot. What makes Salam Namaste so unique, however, is how it applies the themes of its predecessor to explore ideas that are not common in Indian culture. Ideas such as sex and moving in together before marriage, as well as the concept of abortion. Salam Namaste is very much a melting pot of more traditional Western ideals and the classic Bollywood Yash Raj production style of filmmaking, complete with dance numbers, an Indian primary cast, and an immense sense of energy typical of early 2000s and late 90s Bollywood films. Salam Namaste is an excellent example of how Bollywood has taken steps into more liberal Western ideals and implemented them into a film to present ideals to Indian audiences. Salam Namaste also represents the changing face of Bollywood as an international film powerhouse, a new emerging media giant that's exploring the international landscape as its new audience. And it does this by setting films in non-Indian locations, such as Melbourne in Salam Namaste and London in Kabukicho. But what happens when remakes fail? Not in the economic sense, but in the sense of principle. Most of Earth's population, especially the Western world, knows of Godzilla, and many people probably know that it originates in Japan. The original 1954 Godzilla, or Gojira, distributed by Toho Ltd. And made by Isuro Honda, is a cult classic, and has paved the way for what we understand as the Monsterverse, aka King Kong, Godzilla, and King Ghidorah fighting each other. But the original Godzilla was much more than monsters. In the original Godzilla, he stood as a metaphor or a physical manifestation of the result of the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The movie explains that Godzilla is a being that lived in the sea. However, the radiation created by the bombings woke him up, and now he is destined for the Japanese mainland. Creator Isao Honda encapsulated the post-war dread and paranoia into a being of pure destruction. A real-life giant monster to demonstrate that cities can just be destroyed. And to the majority of the people that knew Godzilla, that's what it was. However, in 2014, the first American Godzilla released a huge financial success, and with it came a stream of new American Godzilla films. The American remakes pose a problem to what Godzilla once was. As the biggest entity in the media world, Hollywood has immense control over its IPs. This poses a risk to the original idea of Godzilla. Gone were the days of any metaphorical meaning behind the monster. Instead, Godzilla is merely a vessel in which to build huge CGI fights with a gorilla. However, thankfully, Godzilla's original conception is not lost. The release and huge success of Godzilla -1 in Japan is a return to form for the great beast, and he's returned to his rightful home of Japan, again, to destroy what was already destroyed in the bombings. The American Godzilla remakes and the subsequent franchise is a cautionary tale of how the influence of Hollywood poses a risk to international film's integrity and legacy.